So let's take a look at the homework packet 5, and in the first part it says the second and the third chords form a cadence. So the last chords in each of these things form a cadence. It's going to be these ones here, because the first chord isn't really considered part of the cadence. It's just these last two tell us what happens. Okay, so let's start out with this first one here. It's got an E, C, G, and C. And if we rearrange them all in order, we'd see that it forms C, E, G, or a C chord with E in the bottom. Okay, and in the key of G, that's a 4 chord in first inversion. Next we have this F, A, D, and D, and this F sharp because of the key signature. If we rearrange it to put them all in order, we'd have D, F sharp, A, or a D major chord, which is the 5th chord in the key of G. But again, it's got F sharp on the bottom there, so rather than the D, so it's in first inversion. So 5, 6, and here it'll be D slash F sharp. Finally here we have G, D, and B, and if we rearrange it in order it would be G, B, D, or just a G chord, and that's the 1 chord in the key of G. So last chord we go G. Well, what cadence does that make? Let's hear what it sounds like. We have so it sounds resolved, and it is, and what it turns out is that if we have this 5 going to 1 here, it's an authentic cadence. So it's going to be an authentic cadence, but since it has the 5 chord in first inversion, it's going to be an imperfect authentic cadence. So I would say I, A, C. Okay, let's look at the next one. Let's hear how that sounds. If it went to a 1, it would sound like this. Doesn't though, goes. Goes where you don't expect it, so deceiving you. Okay, in this example we're in C major, and this stuff up here is just letting you know that we're canceling out the previous key signature so you can ignore it. Starts out with here F, A, D, D. We don't need that second D. We just need to rearrange these. So it's going to actually be D, F, A in its closest form, or its closest together, or its simple form. So that means it's a D minor chord, or the 2 chord in the key of C. Actually, let's make that more visible color. 2 chord, D minor, and we can do a little M like that. Next one is G, D, and B. If we rearrange that on the upper voices, it's G, B, D. We're just rearranging that to see what its closest order is. G, B, D. Okay, so G chord, and the G chord is the 5th chord in the key of C. Next up we have C, G, E, and C. We don't need that second C, we just need to have C, G, and E, which could be reordered a bit easier as C, E, G. C chord, so it's a 1 chord in root position. 1 chord and C chord. Notice it also has a C as the topmost voice. And because of that, because it has both chords in root position, and because the highest sounding note is the tonic at the last chord too, it makes it into what's called a perfect authentic cadence. Not just an authentic one, but a perfect one. Both chords root position. Last chord has the tonic also in the top. This next one is in E minor, and you can see that here. It's got a E, B, E, and G. So that's going to be actually an E chord, E minor chord. We just remove this extra E we don't need. E, G, B. Okay, so we'd write that as an E minor chord, capital E, lowercase m. This next one here, we have it in a B, two B's, we don't need the second one, and then we have a D sharp, leading tone of E, so harmonic minor, B, D sharp, and then F sharp here from the key signature, making it a B chord, B major, and let's write these down here too. One chord, that makes it a 5 chord, and then the next stuff we have C, G, and E. If we rearrange that, the upper voices don't determine what position it's in. It determines the voicing, but not whether it's in any inversion. Only this bottommost note is going to determine our inversion. So we have C. Let's rearrange these top ones here. C, E, G, just a C chord. So that's the 6th chord in the key of E minor, and it's a C chord. So the cadence then ends up being from 1 to 5, and instead of going from 5 to 1, which would be an authentic cadence, it goes from 5 to 6. It deceives us. So we can say this is a deceptive cadence. Now let's hear what number 3 sounds like. 2 chord to 5 to 1. I'm going to outline the top note so you can hear what it sounds like too. And the top one. Sounds very conclusive. Let's look at this next one here. We're in the key of E flat. The first chord is an E flat chord, and you can figure out the notes by it. E flat in root position. So we say 1. Next is A flat, C, E flat, A flat, or A, C, A flat, C, E. Okay, so that's a 4 chord. And it's a B flat chord, B flat, D, F. Makes it a 5 chord. Well, it ends on the 5th chord, and so it must be a half cadence. Let's look at this last one here. It starts out A, F, C, F. If we reorder that, that means it's a F chord, F, A, C. But it's a 1 chord, but it doesn't have an F in the bottom, it has the 3rd on the bottom. Here would be the F, the root. Here's the 3rd. So we put it in first inversion. Okay. Up here we just say F slash whatever's in the bottom, which is A. Next one, B flat, D, G. So it's actually a G minor chord in first inversion, which is a 2 chord. G, M slash what's on the bottom, which is that. B flat. And then our last chord, C, E, G. So it's a C chord, and it's the 5th chord in the key of F. So ends in 5, so half cadence. Let's hear what it sounds like. Doesn't get us all the way there. What do we do? want to hear at the end for you to feel the conclusion is. So. That's with a 1 chord at the end of it. Their version ending on 5, so it feels only halfway done. So in this section, there's non-harmonic tones, it says, and they're going to be somewhere inside of each of these chords. So we need to circle them, and we need to say what type they are. So let's check them out. Let's look at this first one here. This first one sounds like this. So it starts out with this C chord, has the E in the top, hits this F, and the F isn't part of a C chord, right? We have C, there's another C, here's a E and G. So a whole chord, C, E, G, it shouldn't have an F in it, right? That's not part of the chord. And because it's not, we have to say that's probably a non-harmonic tone. Okay, but how does it get back to a chord tone? Well, let's first of all say what chord it is. So we got here a C chord. So you're supposed to write anything else? No. Okay. So we have a C chord here, and over here we have a G, B, G, D, or G chord. Cool. So all these are chord tones in the G chord. That means that this F then had to go down this leap, right, from F down to D to get back to a chord tone. So we stepped onto a chord tone, and then leaped from that non-chord tone to a chord tone. And if we step on a non-chord tone like this, and then we leap back to safety, it's an escape tone. In my beautiful writing there, escape tone. All right, so one more time, let's hear what that sounds like. Here's the tone, not part of it, and then it comes back down to the chord tone. Let's look at this next one. We have G, B, D, G. G chord going to A, C, G. What does that spell? I don't know. But A, C, F sharp, all right, this does spell something. If you reorder it, it's F sharp, A, C, which is a diminished chord. It would be like a 7 chord in a key. Okay, so if we wrote out the chords, we have G chord, let's do it above here, G major, going to F sharp, diminished, but with an A on the bottom, slash A. There's a chord progression. But this is our outlier here. What is this tone? Some type of non-harmonic tone. So let's play it. Starts out like this. Resolves at the end to this F sharp. So if you have to ask yourself is, how did it become this non-harmonic tone? Well, it started out as part of the chord. And so it's note, then it's repeated, so this note right here, then repeated, and then it moves down. And so that's going to be called the preparation. Then here it's not in the chord it should be, and it just stays the same, so note and repeated. It's suspended over the new harmony, and now it resolves downwards. So what we label for it is preparation, suspension, and resolution. Let's hear that again. So we have a suspension, and the way we calculate the suspension is you say how far the suspension is over the lowest sounding note, the bass note. So this is what we're looking at here, this distance from A to G. A, C, E, G is 1, 3, 5, 7, or 7 notes higher. So it's a suspension that goes from 7, right here, down to its resolution here, which is 6. So we can say 7, 6 suspension. Let's check out this one in 3. We have this. It's an interesting one there, again. So we basically have the same chord twice, right? We have the same chord twice here and here, right? And then we got this thing in between it right here. So that's got to be a non-harmonic tone. What are the chords that we actually have? Well, the chords we have here is it's a D chord in first inversion. It's got an F sharp on the bottom. Same thing here. D with an F sharp on the bottom. And so this B flat is our outlier. Well, it goes up, right? Then goes up by step. And then it goes back down by step in the opposite direction. So since it goes up by step and then right back down, it's a neighbor tone. Since this one's not part of the key too, or likely not, we could say it's a chromatic neighbor tone. And since it goes up and down, we could say it's an upper chromatic neighbor tone. For our purposes, just neighbor tone, or NT, is cool, neighbor tone. So part of the chord, then this B flat here, and back. Let's listen to this next example in 4. One more time. This note doesn't seem to be right. Oh yeah, now it sounds right. So what's up with that? Well, we got this first chord here, E, G sharp, E, B, so we got an E chord, cool. E major, right? But then we should have E, G sharp, B there, but the chord doesn't have an A in it. All right, so A is not part of a chord. It's getting to this note before we even arrive at the next chord. Next chord is A, C sharp, E, right? So we actually have an A chord there, A, C sharp, E. This A here is a chord tone in the next chord. So it's like we get to the next chord's chord tone even before we're at the chord, right? We're like this, part of the chord, and now this note here is there before we even arrive at the A chord. A bit faster. You hear this at the time in endings of music all the time. So if a note gets to the chord before the chord, like this, it's called an anticipation. It's anticipating that we're going to be in this next harmony. Okay, you can write that down as an ant, A-N-T. Let's look at this last one here. We have these. One more time. Okay, so what's the first chord? we have C, E flat, E flat, A flat. So really you have an A flat chord, A flat, C, E flat. Let's write that, A flat. Oh, but it's got a C at the bottom, A flat slash C. What about this one? A flat or E flat, and remember that it's still can be flat from there. Same with this flat here, still here. So ultimately we have this chord being A flat, E flat. Well, same thing really, except for what is this D doing here? If the C was there, it would be easy, it would be the same chord, right? If the C was here, then we'd have A flat, C, and E flat. You know, we'd have another A flat chord. So the thing that doesn't make sense then is this D flat. Kind of strange though, because it's right on the start of the chord. If it's happening like that, it's an accented non-harmonic tone. And since it just goes down here by step, right, just by step. Let's do it again. Chord tones, and now we hit this D flat. So it's same direction, just steps, so it's a passing tone, but it's an accented. There's a couple ways you could write that, and many of them are correct, but you can just go a P like this with the accent mark over it. Some people also write accented passing tone like that. I prefer this, just the, P for passing tone with an accent mark over it. Let's look at this next assignment. It says the following examples are from Bach chorales. So Bach chorales are Bach like choruses, basically. Chorales aren't choruses, but it's the same type of term. Choral stuff is for voices singing. They're written for 4 parts. We have the soprano on top, then alto, then tenor and bass. They're really a standard way that we do a lot of Roman numeral analysis and harmony analysis in music classes. So you'll be using this in Theory 2, 3, and maybe some of 4 too. So it says write the Roman numeral analysis for each chord. You're supposed to do that. And tell us the position of the chord. 6 for first inversion, 6/4. We know that stuff already. Okay. Circle all the non-harmonic tones. So we got to do that too. And write the abbreviations for them. They say PT for passing tone. Again, you can really just say P. But this is important here. Suspensions. Tell us not only that it's a suspension, but like what specifically the relationship is of the dissonance. So this is a dissonance of a 4th in the bass going to a 3rd. So a 4/3 sus or 4/3 suspension. Neighbor tones, again, you can also write just N. We don't need T for tone. We know it's a tone. Okay, this gives us the first one. See what's going on in this thing. It's analyzed the first one for us. We started in the key of A, right? You've got 3 sharps, and it's one chord, they say, because we have A, C sharp, E, and A, right? And then everything moves up by 1 step to some tone that isn't part of an A, right? Here's a B here, not part of an A chord. Here's a D here, not part of an A chord. And since each of them goes up by step, it's just, also important, connects to the next chord tone by step. Step motion, same direction, so they have to be passing tones. Okay, let's look at the next thing here. Get it down a little bit. Okay, so we have A, E, A, and C sharp. Well, it's C sharp if we just put it down here, make it an A major chord. So A major, which is the key of A, just a 1 chord like we had before. Not so beautiful there, is that? Good enough. 1 chord. Okay. So everything's cool there, but that is not part of it, right? This G is not part of an A, C sharp, E chord. And if we look at how it's going, it goes down by step, and then it moves to a chord tone by step of the next key. So step, and then it resolves by step. Same direction, right? So what is that? Passing tone. So I can say P here. Actually, let's put that in different color. Passing tone. Okay, then what's our next chord here? We have an F sharp, another F sharp, A, and D. So it really should be D, F sharp, A, that order. Really should be at that. It happens to have the F sharp on the bottom. So let's write this up here. This would be, let's do this one too. A, and then this one is D chord, D slash F sharp. And that makes it in the key of A, B, C, D, a 4 chord in first inversion. Any non-chord tones? Nah, everything's a chord tone. Next thing, again, we're in the key of A. So we have E, B, G sharp, and E. We could just put this this G sharp here down here and fill in the chord. That would be E, G sharp, B, or an E chord. And in the key of A, B, C, D, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th chord. So cool. I say that thing is a 5 chord, and it's got an E at the bottom, so it's group position, right? So it's just an E chord, E major chord. But this C sharp, not part of the chord. Oftentimes you'll see it like this, 8th notes, right? I mean, we can just basically predict probably this is going to be the case here too. We'll double check it, but probably. Okay, so C sharp, and how does it get to the chord tone of the next key? Well, it moved away by step, and it resolves by step, all same direction. So step, same direction. So what does that make it? That makes it into a passing tone. Passing tone. How about this next chord? It's got in it a B, D, F sharp, and D. So how do we arrange that in order? B, D, F sharp. Let's got that. B, D, F sharp. We're on the key of A. It's a B chord, so it's a 2 chord. So let's put that down there. So it's a 2 chord. It's got B in the bottom, so it's root position. And B minor chord, since it's the 2, so we have to have a little M there. But this G isn't part of, excuse me, that G here is not part of the chord, right? It's a B, D, F sharp, no G in it. So let's circle that. What is it? Well, it's a tone that goes to a dissonance by a step, and then continues and resolves to this note here by a step. Because of that, step, step, it's got to be passing tone. Now, look at this real quick. See, this is all in the same voice. Notice the stems are going downwards, right? All the non-harmonic tones we look at, we think of as fitting into one voice here. So this is all this alto voice here too that we're working with. Alto. So you might think that it's actually going up somewhere else. Let's erase some of this for a second here. You might think that the pathway is like this, going to there and then going up to there, but it's not. Notice that all the stems are the same, right? So it's going from here to there. That's its pathway. So make sure you note that things are always happening when we're in non-harmonic tones within the same stems down or stems up, whatever their position on the staff. This is all within the alto voice. Okay? So once again, passing tone. Let's look at this next part, this last part, and we go, what chord is it? We have a C, E, A, so that's an A chord, A, C, E, or a 1 chord, and C sharp rather, so 1 chord, but since it says C sharp in the bottom, it's a 1/6, and so we'll say A chord with a C sharp in the bottom, and normal pattern there that we've seen several times now here. It's got this note right here, not part of the chord, passing on through. So passing a tone. Okay, we arrive to this chord, which is an E, G sharp B, or 5 chord. Seen that before. E chord, and finally A, E, A, E, A, C sharp. It's an A chord. Cool. So we say A, or 1 chord. And since it's 5 to 1, it's an authentic cadence. But look at this, it's got a C sharp, right? C sharp on the top. It doesn't have an A on the top. And because of that, even though both chords are root position here, the cadence type would be an imperfect authentic cadence, an IAC. Again, because you would need to have an A on top of everything. Have to have an A as a highest note as well to make it into a perfect authentic cadence. Any other non-harmonic tones or anything? Nah, that is it. Okay, and that is our Bach first assignment number 1 there. So let's hear what this whole thing sounds like. It starts out with an A chord, then it moves up 2 passing tones at the same time and arrives at the next chord in faster motion. So they just pass on by and they don't sound bad because we don't really pause there. If we pause, it would sound kind of strange. But we're going to hear them in motion going towards the goal. Here's the goal. Okay, so we're on the first chord really here. Now, let's look at that. Let's zoom in a little bit. So now we're going to be in this A chord. We're going to have this passing tone going down in the bass note. And it sounds like this. Hear that? Here it is, just the first, these 2 chords without the passing tone. You have a 1 chord, 4, 6. Here it is with it. So it kind of draws our ears in the direction we're going. Makes it nicer and smoother, I think. Next chord. You have that next in the tenor. Passing tone there. Then alto. Passing up. Now bass. And just regular chords with no harmonic tones. Non-harmonic tones, rather. Here it is again, starting over here. Okay, and we're going to have a passing tone in the bass. Regular chord, now a passing tone in the tenor, right here. Now a passing tone in the alto. Passing tone in the bass. And our cadence, and we end on a 1 chord. So a little bit faster motion on that then. Let's look at number 2 here. It's in the key of D major. They've done the first part for us, you know, as we've already seen over here. Passing tones happening, kind of similar to last time. Let's look at a survey too, what we have. We have here, probably passing tone in the bass. See, we're going down by step. Same thing over here, now it's happening in the tenor. Over here, more 8th notes, so likely it's going to be some type of non-harmonic tones, and if it's going by step, passing tones, so step in the tenor, and it's going down here, stems down in the bass. So let's listen to that. Maybe we can even hear what it sounds like. So first part, starting out, you hear those passing through. Chord, and now it's passing. Let's get to the next chord. Yeah, let's do that one more time, a little bit slower, starting out. Passing tones, passing tone in the bass, right there. Now passing tone in tenor. At the last beat, tenor, tenor still, and now in the bass. And we're arriving finally at the last part, to whatever cadence that is. So it sounds like a lot of passing tones. Let's check out to make sure that it actually is, but if you see movement by step in general, the first thought should be passing tone. If it's the same direction, you know, it's really likely to be passing tone. So by step and same direction. Same direction, right? So it looks to me like that's going to be the case here. Going to there, kind of like an overlap, right? This one would be the non-harmonic tone, and this would be the harmonic tone where it arrives right here. But then it goes directly into another one of these same processes, right? It's going to come up, boom, to there. That's going to be our non-harmonic tone. Same type of thing is going to happen over here, right? Where the middle one here would be our non-harmonic tone. So that's what my guess is. We'll look at them real quickly and make sure that that's actually the case. So let's do an analysis. So chord 1's already done for us, so let's check out what happens to the next chord. And again, remember, we're in the key of D here. So for in D here, we have D, A, D, and F sharp. So D, F sharp, A, if we just put this down here. D chord, cool. And it's in root position. Oops. Let's put our Roman numerals down there. 1 chord. And up here we can say D. This C is not part of things here. It's D, F sharp, A chord. Don't have a C in it. So non-harmonic tone. And it happens to be a passing tone. So this next chord here, we have B, G, D, and G. If we rearrange that, it's a G chord. But it's got a B in the bottom, G/B. And the key of D, that's a 4 chord in first inversion. Let's look at the next chord there, and we got C, but since we're in the key of D, D, we got a C sharp as well, right? So we can actually write that in there if we're confused or forget. So we got C sharp, E, E, and A, and that means that we got an A chord. But it's got, again, C sharp on the bottom. So that is a 5 chord in first inversion. Now let's look what happens in between them. This F sharp isn't part of this G chord, GBD. So it's going the same direction. Because of that, resolving by step into the E of the A, C sharp, E chord, then it's passing tone. So let's write that in there, passing tone. Cool. This next one up, we have D, F sharp, D, and A. So it's a D chord. Let's write that in there. D, and root position, and so that's a 1 chord. Notice again it's got this pattern of note going by step. There's no C sharp in the D chord, D, F sharp, A, and it's moving down to the chord tone of this next chord. So it's moving by 1 note, so it's got to be that passing tone. Let's look at these last ones here, and we have E, G, B. Okay, well, there it is, E chord. In the key of D, that's got to be an E minor. It's a 2 chord. It's got E in the bottom here, so it's root position. Okay, so that's a 2 chord. And E, G, B doesn't have a C in it, right? So let's note it's passing by step on its way to the next chord, to this, from C sharp to this D here. So now let's see what we got. We have F sharp, A, D, F sharp, F sharp, A, D, F sharp, or D, F sharp, A if we put it in order. So it's a D chord slash F sharp, and a D chord is a 1 chord in the key, but it's got F sharp at the bottom, right? Not D, and because of that, we know it's a 1/6 chord, first inversion chord. Again, it's got this series of notes passing F sharp, G, A, all by step. This G is not part of a D, F sharp, A chord. So it's by step a passing tone. And finally, we arrive at a chord which is A, C sharp, E, and that's the 5th chord, A, B, C, D, sorry, D, E, F, G, A, 5th chord of the key. Cool. A major chord. And since we ended the whole thing by going from 1 to a 5 chord, right? We ended on 5, so it's a half cadence. Cool. So let's hear how it sounds now. So here it is, starting out. Passing tones. Now passing tone in the bass. Passing tones in tenors when we arrive here on the 4 chord. 5 chord. Now the last chord of measure, the first full measure, 1 chord. Passing tone here in the alto. On the 2 chord, passing tone in the alto again. Now the bass has passing tone. And we end in a 5 chord. Sounding not fully done, right? We would like to hear, but we don't. So here's the whole thing again. We're kind of left with this openness from the half chord, from the half cadence there. So let's check out this last assignment here, 5.5. It says there are 4 excerpts from music literature, and it's giving us the usual things. It says there's going to be harmonic analysis, we want the Roman numerals. We also need to talk about the non-harmonic tones, and we have here the ones that list passing tones. You can just write P again. I would just write P instead of PT, but we know it's a tone. And then for accented passing tone, put a little accent over it. You can just write N for neighbor. We don't need this tone again the whole time, or, accented neighbor tone. ET for escape tone, yeah, or for ET phone home, either way. Sus for suspension. And for suspension, again, it wants you to tell what type of suspension. And this is the distance. This is the suspended note right here. And this is where it resolves to. Okay, so again, this is the sus, a 7th, which is a dissonant, and then resolution here is a 6. This would be the sus, and this would be the resolution. Sus, resolution. Okay, so we're gonna have to find suspensions, escape tones, in addition to the normal passing tones and neighbor tones. Okay? So those are the basic instructions. Let's get into it. Let's hear how this thing sounds. Starts out with a 6 chord that's already given to us. So we've got some cool and rich dissonance in there, right? Some things that are hanging over or lingering in there. Let's listen to that one more time. Here, and here, resolving here. Dissonance here. And now, resolving, and going to home. Kind of a normal speed now. So let's analyze it. So we already know that this is a 6th chord, but let's just write down what chord it is. D, F, A, right? So it's a D minor chord. So look at this next one. This next one is E, C, G, and C. Okay, so it's a C chord. C, E, G ultimately. So you can say C. Does it have C in the bottom? Nah, it's got an E in the bottom. Okay, in the key of F, so it's F, G, A, B, C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5th chord. We know that 5 chords are major and major keys anyway. Cool. Next, got a F, C, A. Well, F, C, and A, if we rearranged them right, if we put this A down here, make ourselves an F chord. This G doesn't make any sense in the chord, right? So something's up with that. So we can just say it's some type of F chord. And F is the 1st chord, so 1. Now what's up with the G? Sometimes we don't know until we get further. Well, look at this. When we get close to it, we see this G, it moves downwards to F, right? And that's part of our chord. F is part of our chord. So we get to here. How do we get there? We started on a G, then we stayed on a G, and then we moved down, right? We moved down to this chord tone. Because of that, it's a suspension. So this would be called the preparation, because it's part of the previous chord, totally a chord tone. But then it lags behind, it stays, right? We keep this note stays here from the previous note. And so it's suspended now over the new harmony. It's not part of it. Okay, so that's our suspension. And this one here, this F, it's back in our chord, back part of this F, A, C chord. So now it's called our resolution. You can just write P, S, and R, or P, then sus, and R. What type of suspension is it? Let's see how far this G is above the bass note. So if we look at that outline, here's a G, here's the lowest note, the bass note, and we go, I can say F, A, C, E, G. That's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So the suspension then is a 9, 8 suspension, because it goes from a 9th here and resolves to an 8th there. Nice and cluttered, huh? Okay, so that happens. Then let's look at the next chord. Our next chord has G, B flat. Remember the key F, so B flat. Let's write it in there just in case. B flats. Oops. Okay. G, B flat, F, B flat. So do we have all the notes we need? G, B flat, F, B flat. We're really missing a note. We need an extra note like an E or something in it. So F doesn't make up a chord. This would work though. This E would make sense in the chord. So we could say the chord would work if it was like E, G, and B flat, right? That would make it become E, G, B flat. Let's make sure. That would become a diminished chord. Also makes sense in the key of F. It would be a 7 diminished. Since it's in with a G in the bottom, it would be 7 diminished 6. Right? Let's write that up here too. So it would be E diminished slash what's on the bottom. /G. So that's kind of strange. It doesn't work with the F in it because we don't have enough notes. That means we're going to have to look back a bit. So if we look back at the previous chord, we had this F that we resolved to. So the chord was really F, A, C with another F up here. Well, this F is now lingering over to the next chord. It's now lingering over there. So really this F is actually a dissonance. It's not part of the chord. This E is actually part of the chord. I'm going to erase a little bit of stuff here for just a second. We can see what we had going on. So this ends up being our resolution. This is our suspension from previous. Sus and resolution. Everything's cool there. The problem is, on our new chord, we keep this same F. So now this same F becomes preparation. It's part of this chord. And in our new chord, it doesn't work anymore. So it ends up being our suspension. And finally, it resolves to this E that we needed in our chord. So it's our resolution. What's the distance of the suspension? To the bass, it's G, B, D, F, or it's a 7. Going down one note to this E, so a 6. So we can say it's a 7/6 suspension. (7-6). So that was a bit harder because we had an overlapping set of suspensions. Here's this one chord, the F chord. But when we got to a new chord, we kept that same F, which is not part of the chord, and it resolved. So the suspensions are overlapping, right? We have one finishing, and then it becomes the next one here. And we see that at this point, where at first it's the resolution of the previous chord, but now that same resolution becomes the preparation for our new suspension. When these happen, where one resolves and it becomes part of the next one, these ones are called chain suspensions, because one suspension is connected right next to another one in a link. So chain suspensions. Not so easy to read that, is it? Okay. Okay, so what's this chord? Next we have A, C, F, A. So it's an F chord, but it's got A in the bottom. Okay, in the key of F, that's a 1 chord. Oops, we forgot to write the other one, didn't we? This is 7 diminished in first inversion. So F chord, nothing going on really in that. How about the next chord? It says here that we're not supposed to know this chord and that everything is considered to be a chord tone. Okay, really it's a G minor chord with a 7th on it in first inversion. So to write that out, we could say G, B flat, D, F. That's the actual chord. And if we just flip this G up to the top, right, we have B flat, D, F, and then G. So that's what they have down here. We're just saying, look, all the notes are considered chord tones, so don't trip out about it. Now everything is considered a chord tone there, but in this next thing, we have C, F, and G. C, F, G doesn't make a chord, unless later on we're looking at pop chords, it makes what's called a sus chord. Interesting. What we really need is C, E, G. C, E, G makes our chord. So this F is not part of it then. Where did it come from? Well, it was a chord tone previously, so it's the preparation. Now it lagged behind and it's hovering over our new harmony, so it's suspended over new harmony and it's a suspension. And then it moves down by a step, so it goes from preparation to suspension to resolution here. Right? Over here, straight over, note, repeat in new harmony where it should have moved, and then move down. Suspension formula. Now what's the distance from the suspension? Well, from C to F is a 4, and then it moves down 1 to this E. C to E is a 3, so it's a 4-3 suspension. So you can say here sus 4-3, and what's the chord? It's a C chord, and the C chord is the 5th chord in the key of F. 5, okay. What's this? Well, on our way down to the next chord, in the tenor voice here, it goes from C to B flat to A. This is passing on its way through, so passing tone. So B is the passing tone. Let's label that. B flat rather, sorry. And our next and final chord, F, A, C, F, is an F chord or a 1 chord. Root position, we've got everything we need. And yeah, that's it. So what type of cadence is it? It's from 5 to 1. And it's also, notice this, it's got the tonic at the highest point, not just the lowest. So both chords root position, 5 to 1. And it's got the tonic in the highest most voice. So what does that make it? It makes it an authentic cadence, but specifically it makes it a perfect authentic cadence, or a pack. So now let's hear this whole thing, now that we know that it's full of these suspensions here. So first chord, minor 6, 5, and our normal one would be here, but it doesn't do that. It goes, and then the G stays there from the previous chord, and finally resolves down. And it stays there, the F stays there, in the next chord where it doesn't belong, and then finally resolves down to 1, and sorry about that, we have this this 2-6-5 chord. The F in there stays into the next chord, passing tone in the tenor, and in a 1 chord with the tonic, in the top. So the whole thing again. Perfect authentic cadence, and that's it. This last one, let's see if we can just figure out the chords kind of quickly, kind of bounce through them. So it says A major, and it gives us the first one. It starts with a 6th chord. So a 6th chord in A major, it's going to be an F sharp chord. So let's write that in. Let's make that a little bit smaller. F sharp minor, or F sharp minus, or whatever you want, or min. Okay. Next one, we have D, F sharp, A. So I have a D chord, and it has a F sharp at the bottom. We'll go through the Roman numerals in afterwards. Next we have here A, C sharp, E, so it's an A chord. Next to this last chord here, we have maybe two things here. So we're going at a quarter note speed mostly, but this is dotted, so probably this last thing is going to be a chord. 1, 2, 3/8 notes, and then this would be the finishing of it. Let's see, we have a G, B, G, and B. So we don't have all the notes to make a chord there, really. So in these cases, you have to make a guess about what's going on by context. In the key of A, we have to say, does it make sense this is like maybe a 1, 4, 5 chord or something like that? And then where does it go next? So each of those questions will kind of help us figure it out. So let's avoid that for just a moment, skip it, and see where we go next. Next we go F sharp, A, C sharp. Okay, so F sharp, A, C makes sense. All right, we already had that over here. So that's a F sharp minor chord. Next, we have C sharp, A, E. So A, C sharp, E would be our chord. In the key of A, right? The key of A, that's going to be our 1 chord, or A chord with a C sharp. Oops. In the bass. Next we have E, A, E, B. So something doesn't work there. We might need E, G, B, or A, C, E, or something. So look around and see, are there any other notes that would make sense in it? Is this next note going to be part of it? You know, it's part of the same beat. So does A, E make a chord? No, that doesn't either. E, G, B would. So we have to ask ourselves, where is it going? And do we have maybe multiple non-harmonic tones? Right? If it's in the key of A, a really common chord we would have is A, because it's a 1 chord. We might also have a D chord, a 4 chord, D, F sharp, A, or a 5 chord. So our question could it be one of those? A 1 chord is A, C sharp, E. But I don't see any C sharp, right? Do you see any C sharp? No. So we're going to have to give some thought on that too. So for the moment, we'll skip that one. And we'll see what's next. E, G, B. Well, that actually does make sense. E, G, B, it's a 5 chord, an E chord. Okay? And then at the end, we have A, E, C sharp, A. So we have an A chord. So we end on a 1. These last ones make a lot of sense. 5, 2, 1. And also, look at this. It has the tonic, A, in the topmost voice. So they're both in root position, so the cadence has to be a perfect, authentic cadence. So we got some stuff out of that. Now we have to backtrack and figure out, well, what the heck is it that came before these things? Sometimes if you look at the non-harmonic tones, it'll help us give us more idea. Let's jump on back to the beginning and see what happened where we left some things off there. So let's give a listen to what's happening. Starting out in the beginning. So we have a lot of these notes in the bottom moving along, and sometimes, check this out, it's going down, then up. Here it's going just up in the same direction. Here we see it going up, then down, now down in the same direction. So let's look at what's happening every quarter note. Quarter note is the main beat, common time, right? So we have here, 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 here. Everything sounded pretty on the beat. If we look at the fact that those are the main beats, probably that's where we're going to find the chords. Some of them we already found up here. We found these ones here. But maybe we should expect a chord then right here. What would a chord be? And we can ignore all this stuff. Well, a chord would be A, C sharp, and F. Or F sharp, rather. What is that? That's another one of these 6 chords here. F sharp, A, C. So let's give that a shot. So we'd see it's an F sharp minor chord. And let's write these ones in here. We can change them if they're wrong in a second. So we have 6 already in the beginning. Okay, then a D chord in the key of A would be a 4, and it's in first inversion. Next is an A chord, which is a 1. Next here would be a 6 chord again, F sharp chord, but it's also being an inversion here because the F sharp's at the top rather than down here at the bottom. So it'd be 6, 6. Okay. If that's the case, what are these other notes around it? Well, this would have to be goes down and then back up. So it's a non-harmonic tone that's moving to a non-harmonic tone by step and then coming back to the same place by step. So that this one would be a neighbor tone. How about this one here? Chord tone going to not part of the chord, arriving as a chord tone, all in the same direction. So this one is a passing tone. Next up, both of these ones you could see as both going up by step, then both going back down to the chord by step. And so we can say both of these actually are neighbor tones. Same type of thing happens here. Like part of the chord, 2 notes of the chord are kind of moving in the same direction. So both of these are moving down by step to the next chord. And because it's all one direction, passing tone. Same thing is happening here. Passing tone. Over here, let's do that in red. Over here, it's going down from a tone and back up by step. So it's got to be a neighbor tone. Be careful on this one. It's going in the same direction, ultimately to a chord tone. Be careful though, because it's all in this alto voice, right? See this part of the stem here, stems are down, stems are down, stems are down. So this is not going, for instance, back up this direction. So this one would have to be a passing tone. Anything else? Nah. Looks like that's most of it. So this exercise, we ended up having several tones that are non-harmonic tones that are going in groups. Oh, we forgot to label some of them. So A chord, there's a 1 chord over here in first inversion. This previous one was an F sharp chord, but it's in root position. So in this particular section over here with these 4 eighth notes, they're just moving by thirds and having a double neighbor tone or a double passing tone. It's basically going up and down and doing this back and forth motion within the chord. Kind of like a slow motion trill or something. Let's hear that and hear what it sounds like. So we start out minor 6 chord, and it goes down to a neighbor tone, and back up to a chord tone of a new chord. Again. Passes through to our new chord. And we feel resolved because it went to 1 chord, 4 to 1. But now when we get there, here, we're on the 1 chord, and we go up to 2 notes that aren't part of the chord. But we will go right back, though. We go right back. So here it is again from 1 to 6, 6. As soon as we arrive at the 6 chord here, right? As soon as we arrive here, it's going to move out of that chord and have these passing notes go to the next chord. Ooh, forgot to note that it's actually passing above too. These ones are also passing up. So this entire thing here, it's all passing stuff. Stuff passing to the next chord. Okay, so let's hear what that sounds like, that passage. So it's passing like this. Doesn't sound bad when it's going in that direction. Okay, next we're going to start at the second to last measure here on the 6th chord. Now the bass is passing up and arriving. So this chord doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It doesn't have enough notes no matter what we do. Very, very often, right before a 5 chord, they'll put a 1 chord in the second inversion. So in this case, a 1 chord would be, and second inversion, it would be, instead of A, C, E, it would have E in the top. E in the bottom. So E, and then the rest of the chord. We're missing this C sharp. Okay, we saw it earlier in this, and we're supposed to kind of hear it lingering there. But really, this would be considered. I'm gonna get that out of the way. This would be considered to be a 1-6-4 chord, or 1 chord in second inversion. It's missing one of its notes though, which makes it harder. Missing the C sharp. And we expect A, C sharp, E. Because of that, this B doesn't have a place either up in it. So it would have to be an accented passing tone. Let's play this whole thing, starting here at 6. So I go. And now here's this accented passing tone B. And 5 chord. Now the D passing tone going down to the chord tone and arriving at the 1 chord. Let's hear the whole thing now. Starting at the 6th chord.